want to be free. We want to be free. We are tired of colonialism. We are tired of...
Special thanks is given to the management and staff of the Lusaka Museum for providing us with the information contained in this documentary. On the 24th of October, Zambia celebrates 57 years of independence. But the question that we want to ask is, how many of you know about independence, the struggle for independence, or maybe just know that it's a day where we get to celebrate independence? Where we are today, we are at the Lusaka Museum, where we want to learn more about independence, the people that were involved, the struggle for independence. How was it? As you are aware, the Lusaka Museum is a place where knowledge is kept. It's a place that is rich with knowledge on history, on culture, and so many things about the country. Next to me is Mr. Alfred Hakola. So Mr. Alfred Hakola is the man that is going to guide us through and give us more information and more details about the Lusaka Museum. Mr. Alfred, you can take us through now.
I'm Alfred Hakola. I'm the librarian here at Lusaka National Museum. So you are welcome. Let me show you what we have in
okay
stock.
Okay, come along. Zambia has 73 ethnic groups that trace their origins from the Lubalunda migrations. The Tonga-speaking people are the oldest Bantu settlers in Zambia. The two major migrations had lasting effects on the ethnic landscape of the country. The Lubalunda migration accounts for most of the ethnic groups in the country.
Here we have migrations. This is a history section where we're looking at the migrations from the north. We have the Lubalunda migrations, and we're saying where did they originate from? So they were coming from Congo, and this is a map of Zambia showing their origin. So transition from the different tribes here, moving from different directions and settling into different places of Zambia. Migrations from the south, we're saying the colonial here, the Lozi Kingdom, and we're going as far as AD 1800 to 1900. And we're showing the Musisi here because this is our traditional dress. We're saying we cannot do away from this unique culture. The Musisi and the Siziba worn by the men. The Musisi is worn by the women and the Siziba by the men. Migrations from the south, we're focusing on the Ngoni, and we have a regalia here which is showing, we have the shield, we have the ndondo, and we're saying these played an important role in preserving our culture, our cultural heritage. And their regalia also symbolizes their civil wars. That's what they used when they were going for war. We move to Zambia's ethnic landscapes. Here we're also showing the tribal and linguistic, this is the different tribes, how they settled a long time ago. And of course how they changed when you compare to now. We have about 73 ethnic groups, and we have to trace back to their origin. And that's a map showing their originality there. Then trade here, our focus is on the historical sites found in Zambia. We're saying Zambia is rich in historical sites. For instance, the Ngombelede. This is also supplementing the school curriculum because it's important that our children learn about historical sites. Here we are reminding ourselves that it was important for the barter system. Like you can see here, the items which were used, these are original items. When you come to the museum, we show the original items. We want the people to see the originality of our cultural heritage. For instance, we have the Chiwa sword here. This was used as currency. And we have the Mpande. Those are cowrie shells. The necklace made of glass beads used as currency in trade. We have the Mpande again here, the cowrie shells used as currency in trade as well and worn as a headgear. And we have the copper ingots here. It's important that we look at the origin of slave trade. How did it start and how did it get abolished? So we are presenting this history, which is very important to Zambia as well as to the Zambian people. For instance, here you've seen their graphics showing how the slaves were transported inland transportation of slaves awaiting transportation, and how they were killed. If one was sick, for instance, they were thrown on the ocean and they were considered as not part of the team. Then here we have, we're showing how they used to capture the slaves. What did they use? And the abolishing of slave trade here. In 1883, it was abolished, 1789, and officially banned in 1833.
The migration into Zambia was as a result of favorable weather conditions, fertile soils good for agriculture, vast water bodies, and rich in minerals. It is this that would soon lead to colonization of Zambia.
We cannot do away from our indigenous way of life. So we're showing the rural setup from and the activities as well. What exactly, because being in the capital city, the Lusaka Museum is in the capital city, and most people have not had the opportunity to go into the villages to see what is there. So this is the best place for them to experience the village life. We're showing their hunting and gathering, farming, or you can call it agriculture, how the traditional way of farming there, fishing, very important activity. We have pottery here, activities done by women. So we have traditional games, storage of food. How were they storing the food a long time ago? The traditional kitchen. They were drying up methods. How were they preserving the traditional foods so that it can stay longer? And we're also encouraging that much as we can say that it's traditional, it is also important that the Zambian people utilize the knowledge which was used, because this method used to sustain them economically as well as help them to preserve the food. So they used to sit down in the fire and an elderly person would be telling them a story. In other words, molding them and teaching them how to live in society. Blacksmithing was also an important activity in the Zambian society.
The British takeover of Zambia began with the arrival of missionaries in the mid-19th century, with David Livingstone being the first of this new breed of Europeans. His activities and writings encouraged others to follow his path. Thus, Reverend Arnott and Coillard entered southern and western Zambia, while Livingstone Mission of the Free Church of Scotland and the White Fathers from the Catholic entered northern and eastern Zambia. They met with varying degrees of success initially, but ultimately, mission stations and schools were established at the opposite ends of the country.
This is a map showing how the explorers were moving from and how they settled in the different parts of Zambia. So we're saying from the history of Zambia, it's important that we also preserve the explorers, because they're also part of the history, the rich history of Zambia. The missionaries, what did they do? The major developments which they did in Zambia, we have the mission house in Mbereshi in 1929. We have the London Missionary Church at Mbereshi in Wapula in 1920, St. Francis Hospital in Katete, the mission house in Porokoso, the normal school students in Sefula in 1921. We have the English church in Lusaka, 1932. Colonization of Africa up to 1924. Here we have objects which were, items which were used during the colonial period, like the messenger's uniform there, or the capasos, like you can call them, the belt worn by messengers as part of the uniform. We have the headdress worn as part of the uniform by the messengers, the case used by the district commissioner. We have the tear gas canister there, and we have the pocket knife, which belongs to Tom Davy, the European who discovered the Broken Hill mine. Then here we have the BSA where we're showing the colonization of Zambia, as it was known as Northern Rhodesia, and the history behind that. It was divided into two. Between 1905 to 1911, there was the Northwestern Rhodesia and Northeastern Rhodesia before it came to Northern Rhodesia. So here we also have coins which were used during the colonial period, during the Northern Rhodesia and Nyasaland period. Then we have the movement identification certificates, which were used during the colonial period. We have the Barose Native Police on Parade, 1905, the Silver King Mine, that's 1903. The District Commissioner on tour being carried by Africans, construction of the Victoria Falls Bridge, the discovery of the Broken Hill Mine in 1902, and here we have the District Commissioner collecting taxes in villages. Still on the colonial rule between 1924 to 1953, we're saying there was the reign of King of Britain between 1936, that's King George the Sixth, 1936 to 1952. We have the Legislative Council, the Boma in Broken Hill, known as Kabwe now, Luwingu Boma, 1960, the Boma offices in Chilanga, 1930, and the post office.
The main driving force for British intrusion north of the Zambezi came from C.C. Rhodes, a British mining magnate who had made his fortune in South Africa diamonds and gold fields. Rhodes wanted to see the high plateaus of Central and Eastern Africa under British rule and settlement. He also wanted to add, as an extra to his personal mining, the copper deposits of Katanga and the gold deposits between the Limpopo and Zambezi. The British government, concerned as it was with maintaining British supremacy at the Cape, was anxious to prevent the Boers, Portuguese or Germans from creating hostile alliances further north. Thus, in 1889, it granted a charter to Rhodes' newly formed British South African Company, giving it powers to make treaties and conduct administration north of the Limpopo. In 1890, the company occupied the eastern part of what became Southern Rhodesia, south of the Zambezi. And meanwhile, it had obtained treaties and concessions from various African chiefs north of the Zambezi. Rhodes' agents were unsuccessful in their efforts to obtain the copper-rich Katanga province of the Congo, which fell instead to King Leopold II of Belgium. This led to the exclusion of that portion of the copper belt on the Congo side of the Congo-Zambezi watershed from Zambia and the creation of the popular intrusion known as the Congo Pedicle, later the Zaire Pedicle, between the eastern and western lobes of Zambia. The intrusion of the British South African Company BSAC into Northern Rhodesia in the 1890s did not, at the time, seem an event of great importance to the scattered people of the territory. The full significance of BSAC rule did not become clear until it had set up a local administration and began collecting tax. It was this, above all else, which first showed the ordinary villager that both he and his chief had a new master. The failure of the British South African Company to discover payable mineral resources led it to treat the millions or so inhabitants as a labor reserve for exploitation in distant farms, mines, and towns. So, in order to free the African tribesmen from the land in 1903, the British South African Company imposed a 3-shilling hard tax on all adult males, which had to be paid in cash, not in produce or livestock. This was a standard British colonial procedure for creating a body of willing wage laborers, and the tax collection was vigorously enforced. During the period of company rule, a railway had been built across Northern Rhodesia to Elizabethville, the capital of Katanga, thus linking it with the coast in 1910. And white farmers were encouraged to settle in the more healthy and fertile areas of the country. Between 1911 and 1921, the European population rose from 1,500 to 3,500. In 1924, the British South African Company transferred its administrative responsibilities in Northern Rhodesia to the Colonial Office, and the Legislative Council was set up, effectively excluding Africans. The company retained its mineral rights in the northwest. This was thought a minor concession at the time, but it was later to prove enormously profitable to the British South African Company. The switch from company to crown rule exacerbated the plight for the African population. The first governor, Sir Herbert Stanley, tried to transform Northern Rhodesia into a white man's country, bringing South Africa and Southern Rhodesia with British East Africa. He therefore encouraged European immigration and set aside blocks of land which would in effect be available for exclusive European use. By 1930, some 60,000 Africans had been forced to move from the lands that had been reserved for white settlers. It took until the 1940s before the destruction became apparent to the colonial administration. The most important economic development in the early 1920s was the discovery of vast deposits of copper, mostly well below the levels reached by existing mines. In 1928, two giant mining companies were established on 50,000 square miles of land where the British South African Company had sold mining concessions. The companies were Rhodesian Anglo-American, founded by the South African diamond and gold magnate Ernest Oppenheimer, and Rhodesian Selection Trust, an American company. In the 40 years before independence, over £400 million generated in Zambia, largely by the copper mines, was exported to the developed world and Rhodesia. In the 10 years before independence alone, the two copper mining groups, Rhodesian Selection Trust and Anglo-American, sent £260 million in dividends, interests, and royalty payments out of the country. In the period from 1923 to 1964, the British South African Company received more than £160 million gross and 68 million net from the mineral royalties, while the British Treasury collected approximately another £40 million in taxes from Northern Rhodesia and spent only $5 million on development. The companies organized their labor force on the same basis as in other British colonies and in South Africa. Skilled work was reserved for workers and semi-skilled and unskilled work for black people. That is the color bar. High wages were paid to the whites while African wages were kept at a very low level. By 1937, there were nearly 20,000 Africans working on the copper belt and about 4,000 whites. By 1954, there were 44,000 Africans and 6,840 whites. This rapid industrialization had profound social and political effects. It reinforced the character of Northern Rhodesia as a vast labor reserve. Racial conflict sharply increased. For the first time, large numbers of Africans were living and working alongside Europeans in towns within Northern Rhodesia. Africans began to be aware of themselves, not simply as tribesmen, but as indispensable labor force. There was a glaring disparity in the treatment of white and black labor, especially since both the mining companies and the government were at pains to discourage long-term African settlement in the towns. In 1935, Africans went briefly on strike at 3 mines, yet they lacked the organization for sustained industrial action, but they alarmed European mine workers into forming an all-white trade union. When this white union struck in 1940, African miners struck again and achieved a modest wage increase. The government would still not allow African unions to be formed, and in the absence of any other effective negotiation machinery, Africans formed welfare societies throughout the Copper Belt. In 1953, against the wishes of most Africans in the Northern Rhodesia, the conservative government of Britain agreed to increase the power of the white settlers in Central Africa by forming a federation of Northern Rhodesia, Southern Rhodesia, and Nyasaland, known as the Central African Federation. Northern Rhodesian Africans had opposed any closer links with Southern Rhodesia because they saw clearly that such links would be used to establish settler control north of the Zambezi. In particular, they feared the land would be alienated on a large scale, as it had already been in the south. In the 1940s and early 1950s, these fears provided Africans throughout Northern Rhodesia with a common political cause.
This is showing how the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland between this period and what transpired after the nationalism and decolonization of Africa, narrowing it down to Zambia. Here we have prominent freedom fighters, and these were the people who were in the forefront fighting for the struggle for independence and attainment of independence. As well as the women here, women played also a very important role in the struggle for independence, as well as made us to what we are now.
Africans had formed welfare societies throughout the Copper Belt and most of the towns along the railway line in the 1940s. In 1948, the Federation of Welfare Societies was transformed into an expressly political body, the Northern Rhodesia Congress. In 1948, the Federation of Welfare Societies was transformed into an expressly political body, the Northern Rhodesia Congress. Between 1951 and 1953, under the leadership of Harry Mwangankumbula, Congress campaigned vigorously against the Federation, and it had the support of most chiefs, even though these were agents of the colonial administration. The first political party representing African interests, the Northern Rhodesia African National Congress, was formed in 1948, led by Godwin Mbikusi-Talewanyika. Kaunda's political engagements also began in the same year. In 1951, Harry Mwangankumbula took over leadership of the party, which became known as African National Congress, ANC, of which Kaunda became a member. In 1956, Kenneth Kaunda was arrested and sent to Kabompo prison. In 1958, Zambia African National Congress was formed and was led by Harry Mwangankumbula, but was banned the following year in March 1959. A new party, known as United National Independence Party, UNIP, was formed. When Kaunda was released from prison, Mainza Chona handed over the leadership to Kaunda. During the same period, Zambia Northern Rhodesia, at the time part of the Central African Federation that comprised two other countries, Zimbabwe, which was Southern Rhodesia, and Malawi, which was Nyasaland. Between 1959 and 1964, there were three political parties in Zambia, namely ANC, UNIP, and United Federation Party, UFP. In 1962, UNIP and ANC formed a coalition government. In 1962, following a massive campaign of civil disobedience organized by UNIP, the British government introduced a constitution for Northern Rhodesia, which would create an African majority in the legislature. UNIP agreed to participate in the elections and later formed a coalition government with what remained of the old Congress. Between them, they won over 2/3 of the total votes. The federation was thus doomed and was formally dissolved at the end of 1963. Early in 1964, a new election based on universal suffrage was held and UNIP won 55 seats in the new 75-member National Assembly. 10 seats were reserved for European representatives, and the ANC won the remaining 10 seats. Thus, Kaunda was able to form an all-UNIP government with substantial control of internal affairs, except for defense. Constitutionally, the way was now clear to full independence.
The picture of President Kenneth Kaunda when he was in office.
Okay. Oh, I can even see in the traditional attire.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, uplifting the Zambian culture. I can see it says Kenneth Kaunda with Mr. Milambo.
Yes, Mr. Milambo.
Okay.
His home in Chirenje home,
Okay.
1951. As you can see here, it shows humility.
Okay.
You have to respect the elder.
Yes.
So, as you can see, he was able to sit down there.
Okay.
While Mr. Milambo was able to
showing respect to the elderly
yes,
people.
exactly.
Okay.
And then also, as you can see, for the Chachacha now here, where there was that intense of activities in terms of pressuring the colonial government so that we
get our independence.
Yes,
Okay.
as you can see here, is wearing the Mahatma Gandhi
Outfit.
Yes, outfit.
Okay.
Which symbolizes rough cloth as a sign of people suffering.
The suffering that the people were going through before independence.
Exactly.
Okay.
As you can see.
Then I've also seen stuff.
Yes,
Okay.
As you can see in this picture, here there is Kaunda here, and then down on the right,
Okay.
this is Harry Mwangankumbula.
Okay, Harry Mwangankumbula.
Yes,
okay, actually the Livingstone Airport is actually named after him.
Exactly.
Harry Mwangankumbula International Airport.
Yes.
Just to remember the people that fought for our independence.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And also there is Peter Matoka here, right?
Okay.
And also Mr. Hiwa. Right?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So these are the also people who together with the Kaunda fought the independence.
Okay.
So that we are liberated.
Okay.
As you can see in his early days.
As a politician.
Yes, as a politician.
Okay, I can see the people were actually had hope in him. That's why they're even able to lift him up like this.
Yes.
Okay.
Then here, as you can see, this is the first cabinet that they constituted.
Okay.
Yes. Unfortunately, there was no woman, but it doesn't mean that they were not. Yes, they
were not involving women. But
yes.
I've seen Mama Betty here.
Yes.
Okay.
As you can see, there's also Mama Betty here. As you can see, during the celebration of independence.
Okay.
As you can see, also here has been Kaunda has been sworn in.
No, the first swearing in.
Yes, the first swearing in ceremony at Independence Stadium.
Okay.
Coming here, as you can see, the hosting of the flag.
Now bringing down
bringing down the Union Jack
Okay.
Independence celebration.
Is this the flag that is here?
Yeah, this is the one we brought down.
The colonial flag. Maybe we can just hold
The colonial flag. This is
okay. So this is the flag that was there before before independence.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And after that, now we came to the Zambia national flag.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And then while they were celebrating,
okay,
they were able to kill the buffalo so that they could feed the people during independence celebration.
So this is a real buffalo.
This is the real buffalo.
Okay, this was not just crafted; it's as in real buffalo.
No.
Okay.
The real buffalo.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and I've seen this statue here. This is for independence, I guess.
Yes, this represented a symbol of freedom.
Okay.
Yes.
That is the one in front of a government complex.
Yes.
Okay.
So it represents that we are free now.
Free from colonial law.
Yes. Exactly.
Okay.
As you see, this bicycle is very important in this museum because this one it was used by Dr. Kaunda.
Okay.
Then before independence. So
okay.
when he bought this bicycle, during that time, people were not allowed to go to mix with
the whites.
With the whites.
Okay.
So us they could just whatever that you want to buy, they could just use these pigeonhole.
Okay.
For you to, but cleverly Kaunda said, "Yeah, I want to go and buy a bicycle."
Okay.
And he said, "I want this bicycle to pass through this window." And
okay.
The whites were shocked to say, "How? So
how is he going to pass through?"
Yes, how is he going to pass through this?
Okay.
So yes, of course, he was able to. He was very serious, actually, and it was a lesson to them to say that. Really, independence is very, very important for them to be given.
Okay. We are on another part of the Lusaka Museum. So as you can see behind me are some of the machines that appear to be old. But these machines have a part to play when we talk about independence. So Mr. Hakola here is going to explain more about these machines. So Mr. Hakola, could you kindly explain to us so that people out there get to know what these machines are, the part that they have to play on the part of the independence?
So as you can see, for the vehicle for the Hari Mwanga Nkurumbura, it is a vanguard, which was used during independence struggle. This was used by Hari Mwanga Nkurumbura, and also Mungoni Linso, the party secretary general, was also used this same vehicle. Even that grader there, it was used during independence struggle. This was used mainly by the colonial masters when our people were protesting during those Chachacha days. They could lay some logs on the road, and this grader that you are seeing, it was used to clear off the debris and the logs on the road. This vehicle that you are seeing, which is Chrysler, it was used by Kaunda somewhere in 1964 after independence. So this was more like a second vehicle for official use. When visitors would come to Zambia, they could use this vehicle.
The cage that you are seeing behind me, these are some of the instruments that were used, or let me say the tools that were used in the oppression of our people, of our black people in the struggle for independence. So this is a cage that was used in the transportation of prisoners, of black prisoners, from one place to the other. It's called a mobile police cage. So black people were put in this cage prior to being transported to a different location where they would be kept in a prison. One other thing that you'll be able to see here at the Lusaka Museum is this blue boat. This boat has a part to play when we talk about independence, the struggle for independence. It has a significant part to play, and so Mr. Hakola here will explain more about this boat and the role it played. So Mr. Hakola, could you just kindly explain to us about this boat?
This piece of object here in the museum, it's very, very important because this boat was used by the colonial masters. So when they went to arrest Mr. Moses Luneta in
That is before independence.
that was before independence, yes.
Okay.
So when they captured Mr. Luneta in Zambezi district, he was a party. He was a constituent secretary.
Okay.
So on their way back, so there were 7 police officers. So together with Mr. Luneta, so on the way, the boat capsized.
Oh.
So this is why this boat is here, and it is very significant to us because of Mr. Luneta, who was a freedom fighter.
Okay. The new state of Zambia came into being on 24th of October, the day of independence, symbolized Zambia's commitment to the ideals of the UN Charter. Zambia chose to become a republic within the British Commonwealth. Kaunda became head of state as well as chief executive. The only other head of state to attend the independence celebration was Julius Nyerere, president of Tanzania. His presence affirmed the two leaders' determination to pull Zambia away from white South and closer to the black North. The years of colonial exploitation and neglect, the country could at last take a hand in shaping its own destiny. After years of humiliating subjection to the color bar, Africans had successfully asserted their own dignity as human beings. Against so many expectations, they had achieved political emancipation, both from Britain and from white supremacies. But this victory was only the beginning of a new struggle for self-reliance and socialism within a national philosophy of humanism. As we honor this great day of independence, it is important that we learn our history and pass it on to the next generation so that we know where we are coming from as a nation. Know the men and women that fought and struggled for this freedom that we are enjoying today. The Lusaka Museum, a place that is filled with knowledge. You want to know about the history of Zambia? This is the place where you can come to. You can learn more about the struggle for independence, just like the information that we have shared with you, the struggle for independence, the people that were involved. Dr. Kenneth David Kaunda, you have seen like some of the vehicles that were used by some of the leaders that fought in the struggle for independence. Special thanks is given to the management and staff of Lusaka Museum who were very helpful in the production of this documentary. On behalf of management and production team from CBC and Live TV, I am Max Mongo.
African day.